defining part of the history of women's rights. Disagreements of this character persist, as in July and August 2018 columns in the New York Times. Threading between opposing views, Quinn never loses sight of the limitations, even the villainies, of women's suffrage within the prejudices prevailing in American society over time. In words and images, Quinn never narrows her own vision of American women. Within its narrative of rewarding imagination, She Votes investigates and demolishes convenient founding myths. Was Susan B. Anthony actually in Seneca Falls in 1848? Evidently not. And did Sojourner Truth really ask whether or not she was a woman? Emphatically not. Thanks, Bridget Quinn, for a commemoration of the struggles for American women's rights, conceived and written broad-mindedly.
Introduction. This is a true story, an adventure story. It's got triumphs, oh yes, but also its share of tragedy. Beautiful friendships and terrible betrayals. Greek myth-level hubris alongside earnest human striving and goodwill. It's a tale of hope and courage, and maybe most of all, the relentless pursuit of freedom. Liberation by way of persistence. This is the remarkable and too little-known story of how the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which prohibits states and federal government from denying voting rights on the basis of sex, came to be adopted at last on August 18, 1920, and what happened next. It's not the whole story, not by a long shot. That would take more space than I've got here and maybe more time than you've got just now. Because the story is still being written every day, thank goodness, maybe by you. So here's what I propose on this particular docket. 19 ways of looking at the history of women's rights in America. Art has always been enlisted to memorialize the past, our fierce battles and grand achievements, our grievous losses and deepest sorrows. So in commemoration of the 100 years since ratification of the 19th Amendment, herein 100 women artists illuminate our past and celebrate the badassery of our present. To create one's own world takes courage, said Georgia O'Keeffe. That goes for art and for politics. That goes for everything worthwhile, as we'll soon see. Should I confess right up front that I'm more art historian than capital H historian? I'm more than willing to arm wrestle over how much it matters. What I am mostly is a storyteller, and what I believe more than anything is that stories of history need to be told. True stories, to quote Norwegian painter Edvard Munch, about living people who breathe, feel, suffer, and love. Speaking of Norway, in 1913 it became the so-called first sovereign nation to grant women the right to vote. In Norwegian, the verb to vote is stemme, which is also the noun voice. In any language, the right to vote means having a voice, using it, and making it heard. With that in mind, I'm always interested in giving voice to women's lives, telling a history, dare I say herstory, that's been overlooked and forgotten. Because there's a kind of murder of the spirit that happens when we forget where we've been and who made us, when we lose track of the gifts of our inheritance, which are, like the boons of a fairy tale, the very tools to help us fashion our way forward. How U.S. women got the vote is a foundational story of American womanhood, a tale always worth telling anew. The story usually begins with the Seneca Falls Convention in 1848. But let's not start there. Let's start instead in a smallish bathroom in Arlington, Virginia, belonging to my old grad school pal Mark and his wife Karen. It was January 21, 2017, the morning after the inauguration of America's 45th president, and I was brushing my teeth. 75 mornings earlier, I'd been hunched over my computer at home in San Francisco, watching the 2016 presidential election unfold. I watched commentators across political parties, across websites, and across the country ratchet up the unease as presidential reality dawned. When the anxiety of following returns became too much, chest tight, mouth dry, anything in the house that didn't require cooking quickly consumed, I distracted myself with Facebook and Twitter. There I repeatedly saw images of women leaving stickers on the grave of Susan B. Anthony.